carnivores and spiderettes, Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. Now recently I was digging through my various books and things, and I was looking through a book by Elizabeth Zimmerman. Now she is a goddess in the knitting world, and I saw a pattern of hers and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Can I crochet that? Her version is knitted in the garter stitch. This, of course, this is done in the granny stitch. Now you guys know I love the granny stitch, and it is a piece called the Mobius vest. And the reason is because there's no right inside or outside to it. Now, if you wear it one way, you have these really cool lapels that also become the sleeves, and they drape in the front very, very nicely. Let me turn around for you. And so this is one way to wear it. Now it's reversible, which I thought brilliant. Because it is the granny stitch, I thought, well, it is a Mobius vest, yes, but if you want, you could call it the two-faced granny. Do you hear crickets? So if you turn it inside out, you can then wear it like this, which gives it a very different look. Now, in this way of wearing it, let me just pull my little sleeves down. In this version, you can see that the sleeves are much more defined, and the lapels actually go inside, and it curves inward, which I thought, oh, that's really neat. And it is a minimal amount of sewing, minimal, just for the side seam. Very, very simple, and you can make one of these in a weekend, no problem. Also, extra bonus, for this piece and for the one that I'm going to show you, it was Pound of Love, and it took less than 1 skein. Bonus! Of course, you may need more if you need a bigger size. Granted, I mean, that goes without saying. So, also, another thing that I thought was interesting is that it's very, very similar to a previous project that I did, which was the kimono shawl. And you'll see what I mean when I lay it out before it's been seamed. It's almost the exact same thing. And I'm going to put a link in the description box down below on that particular video. It's very similar, except this one is joined to create a fitted garment. Well, relatively speaking, fitted garment. And it's very, very simple, and I hope you guys like it. So let me show you what it looks like before it's been seamed, and then I'm going to show you how you can crochet it yourself. Okay. Alrighty, so this is the piece before it's been seamed. And if you've seen the video that I did on the kimono shawl, it is the same thing. You have the base, and then you have 2 top flaps. Now for the kimono shawl, the flaps, they just drape over your shoulders and you don't seam them. This version, this is more of, like I said, more of a fitted garment. That being said, I found that it helps if you take a shirt that you would normally wear and use that as a guide, which is what I did. And I found that to be very helpful, and I'm going to show you what I mean. And so it's a very, very simple construction to make this. Now, as far as the width, it was about 23 clusters, these little guys, 23 clusters wide. And then I crocheted 44 rows until I reached this point right here. Okay. And then I continued on going up, 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 up for each of the flaps it was 41 rows. Now, of course, this is me using a size K hook and me with my personal gauge. So this is more of a formula than an actual pattern. Okay, so keep that in mind. Also because we're all different. We're like snowflakes. We're all different. We are all different sizes. So, don't take what I say as a distinct pattern, because this is a formula, not so much a pattern. And using a shirt that you wear, well, that really helps. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Alrighty, so what I did was I took one of my shirts and I laid it out to show you that you don't want the vest to be the same size as your shirt. You want to go beyond a little bit for some breathability, some leeway, some drape. You know, you don't want it to be like going directly against here. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very tight. There's going to be no drape. And also, if you are wearing, say, a shirt like this, or a sweatshirt or a sweater underneath this, it's going to be very, very tight, you know. So I would say go bigger than smaller. Same thing applies with, you know, shawls and that sort of thing, because you would like there to be some drape in there. At least I would. That's my personal preference. Also, I went higher than where the shirt comes to because I want it to come below my waistline. So that's the reason why it is as big as it is. It seems huge, but when you're actually wearing it, you know, it isn't quite as such. And so that is how I achieved the right size. And the first one that I made, actually, it worked out perfectly. Knock on wood, you know, somebody was smiling upon me, but it actually worked. You may need to do a little bit of trial and error because, you know, like I said, this is a formula, not a pattern. I can't stress that enough. And so from here, I'm going to show you as far as what you would need to do as far as seaming. And yes, we will get into the actual crocheting part. Don't worry. Okay. All right. So then when your piece is completely done, also, I would strongly suggest that you sort of, you know, try it on, if you will, you know, to see if it's, you know, the appropriate size for you before sewing, you know, because you know, you really can't undo that so much, you know. I mean, yes, you can make some alterations and changes, but I would strongly suggest, you know, sort of try it on as you go. You can do some slip stitching along the edges to see, all right, is this going to work or do I need to keep going? All right. So what you're going to do, let me show you, is you are going to grab your flaps and bring them on down. Bring them on down to Chinatown. And then what we're going to do is, now there are two ways of adjusting your flaps so that you're creating the Mobius, okay? One of the ways is to twist it like this. And then, so then this one would be like that, right? And so then this version would create the sort of defined sleeves that I showed you. The other way is to twist it the other way. And this version would give you those lapels, right? And now at this point, now I know it looks sort of like a hot mess in this form, but as you saw with when I was wearing it, it does work itself out. You know, like because it's a Mobius, there is, like I said, no definitive right or wrong side out. It's just one continuous piece. So what you would want to do ultimately, I think, is to figure out which way you think you would want to wear it most. Now, the reason why I say that is because when you are seaming, unless if you are, you know, a better seamstress than I am, which you probably are, there will be, you know, your seams will be more visible on when you wear it one side as opposed to the other side. So like, for instance, if you want to wear it with the lapels predominantly, I would say do it the other way so that you have the defined sleeves, and then do your seaming, then turn it inside out. And that way, when you're wearing it predominantly in the style that you want, then your seams will be facing inside. I hope that makes sense. I really do. So basically, after you do your, you know, your twist, you know, so right now they're both facing the same direction. after you do your twist, all you have to do is, with a yarn needle and so forth, just stitch up and being sure to leave enough of an opening, say about here or so, enough of an opening for you to comfortably get your arm through. Again, it isn't exact. There's no exactness to it because, like I said, we're all different sizes. We're all like snowflakes. So basically stitch up until you have a sufficient arm aperture, an armhole. And then, quite simply, all you would do is, what I personally did was I did a single crochet edging for 2 rounds around the entire thing. And so basically it was 2 single crochets per double crochet space, 2 single crochets underneath each double crochet. And I did that all the way around. And when I hit one of these corners, I did actually, it was a total of 5 double crochets into the corner. And that way, when I went around the second time, in the third single crochet, I did an additional 3 single crochets so that the corner wouldn't be all bunched up. So that being said, it really is a simple project, and I hope you guys definitely try it. Now I'm going to show you how you can go about doing the granny stitch in straight rows and how you can have a really awesome and relatively seamless piece, because from the base going into the flaps, as you can see, there's no seaming, which is really awesome. And on either of these, very, very easy. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. Alrighty. Hello again. All right, so now we're going to get into the actual crocheting of the project. For those of you that don't know how to do the crocheting of the granny stitch in rows, well, here we are. So I'm going to be using a size K, which is a 6.5 millimeter hook, and I've got more of my Pound of Love. Not sponsored, like I said, but I always like to let you guys know what it is that I'm using. And so we're going to start with a slip knot, as per usual. And what we need is a multiple of 3 chains plus an additional 1 chain. All right, so now for my finished piece, I did a total of 70 chains. This, of course, is an arbitrary number. You may need it to be wider, narrower, whatever it is that you're going for. I mean, also, if you're using a different sized hook or a different thickness of yarn, or if you have a different gauge. So I can't very well say you need X number of yards. So that being said, we're going to start chaining. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and I've got a bit of a tangle here. So I've got 21, which is divisible by 3 as well as by 7. Now, I found that having an odd number of multiples of 3 worked out for me. So I'm going to stop here and then do my additional 1 chain, which we need. All right, so I've got a total of 22 chains. All right. And then going to go into the 4th chain from the hook with a double crochet. Now you could go into the back bump like so, or you could go into the top loop. Personally, I would suggest going into the back bump because it'll make it easier to do single crochets along the edge when you're done. For tutorial purposes, I'm just going to go into the top loop because it's easier. So into that 4th chain from the hook, do a double crochet and another double crochet like so. So we've got our first cluster of 3. Then chain 1 and skipping 2 chains, going to that 3rd chain with another cluster of 3 double crochets. And we're going to do this all the way across until we reach the very end. Now, previously I had said in the corner, when you were doing your border, I said double crochets. Nix that. Okay, I meant single crochets. My bad. But I did notice when I was reviewing the footage, I'm like, oh, I said double crochets. When I did the border, I did it all in single crochets. Okay, just to try to clarify. All right, so I did my 3 doubles and I chained 1. So I skip 2 chains and going into that 3rd chain with 3 more doubles for another cluster. This is really one of those awesome projects that you can lose yourself in because you really don't have to think about it too terribly much, which is why I like this stitch so much. So I got my 3 doubles, chain 1, skip the next 2 chains going into that 3rd with another cluster of 3 doubles. And also keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to use the granny stitch. I mean, if you use another stitch, you can't call it a two-faced granny, just so you know. But you can do solid double crochets if you don't want something quite so lacy. You can do that too. That is perfectly fine. There are a number of other stitches that would probably lend themselves to this particular project. Just keep in mind that when you are taking those flaps and bringing them down, well, it's going to be going up the back and then coming down on the flaps. So if it is a pattern that has a distinct, up direction and down direction, well, that is going to play a part in it. So skipping the next 2 chains, going into the 3rd chain with another cluster. Same thing applies if you are using a color changing yarn. It could have some really gorgeous effects, I'm sure. It could also end up looking perhaps a little bit weird. So we are at the very end. So I did my 3 doubles, my chain 1, and we're skipping those last 2 chains going into the final 3rd chain right there with 3 double crochets for our final cluster. All right. Bingo. All right, so that is the first row for our piece, and I'm going to show you the second row, which it's basically a 2-row repeat. How easy is that, right? So I'm going to show you, a couple rows of this, and we shall continue. Okay. All right, so for the second row of the repeat, you chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the work because we need the equivalent to a double crochet and a chain 1. And then going into this first chain 1 space, 3 doubles. Now, of course, something else you could do is eliminate the chain 1 space if you want your piece to be perhaps a little bit tighter. That is totally up to you. I like to do the chain 1. So across this row, it's just 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, chain 1. Really, really, really simple. Just going into each of these chain 1 spaces with another cluster separated by a chain 1 space. Very simple. You see? And actually, yes, I did manage to finish one of these in about 2 days. Granted, I don't have to, concern myself with a spouse or children or pets that are constantly vying for my attention. So it might take you a little bit longer. I guess I have an unfair advantage, but if you tell everybody just, I'm in my stitching zone, leave me alone. You could probably get this done in a weekend. So it's one of those great projects for last minute stuffs. All right, so I'm at the end. So I need to chain 1 and then double crochet into the top third chain of our first double crochet. It can be a little bit tricky, but with a little bit of persistence, a little bit of patience, it does pay off. Now, what you could do, which I wouldn't recommend, but you could just go into this space with your double crochet. Honestly, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but you see you have that bit of a gap right there. So personally, I would say go into the actual stitch as opposed to in between in that space. Personal preference. I'm not going to judge you, but I think that looks a little bit neater. Personal preference. All right, so then it's just a matter of repeating these first 2 rows over and over and over. So it would be chaining up of 3, turning the work, and then going into this chain 1 space with 2 more double crochets for your total of 3. Also, I'm going to backtrack real quick because when you are doing your initial chaining up of 3, I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. When you're chaining up 3 and you know that you're going to have to go into that stitch later, try to keep that third chain just a little bit loose, because it'll make it that much easier to get into on the next row. So I've got my chaining up of 3, my 2 doubles into that chain 1 space, and then we go across with our clusters of 3 double crochets separated by chain 1 spaces all the way across. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Pull out some more yarn. There we go. Another thing that you could do with your finished piece, you could add a shawl pin or some buttons, some sort of closures. Honestly, for this, I think it does just fine without a closure, especially considering that it is a reversible piece. I think it does just fine without it. You know what? Also, I will put a link in the description box down below for how I came up with a pretty neat way of making shawl pins. And I know this is not a shawl, this is a vest, but it's still applicable. So just doing the same thing, going across with my 3 doubles in each chain 1 space, and then a chain 1, and we've reached the end of the 3rd row. So into this space, you can just go right into the space. You don't have to worry about going into the 3rd chain. No, just go right into the space with 3 doubles. Like so. And then for the next row, again, chain up 4, because we need a double crochet in a chain 1 space. Turn the work, and then into that next chain 1 space, 3 double crochets, chain 1, and 3 double crochets all the way across. Yes. And now when you are making the body of your piece, I did mine, it was an even number of rows because it makes it easier, excuse me, makes it easier when you are adding the flaps at the top. And I'm going to show you that. Just going to finish this row first, and then I'm going to show you how you would go about creating your flaps. So this is going to be a total of 4 rows. Now for my finished piece, I did 44 rows. And for me, that worked out just fine and dandy and snazzy and spiffy. You may need, of course, to do more clusters or fewer clusters across and more rows going up. But that's the beauty of this. You know, it is far more of a formula than a regimented pattern. And I kind of like those better because it creates more opportunity. You know, it's like we're not all, you know, runway models with perfect figures and, you know, washboard abs and no, I know I'm not. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous when they, you know, give specific sizes and it's like you have to follow that, otherwise you just can't do it. No. We are snowflakes, but we are more resilient. We do not melt. All right, so I'm at the end, so I'm going to chain 1 and then going to go and do a double crochet into that top 3rd chain, which I made a little bit loose, so I should be able to get in there no problem. Yay! All right, so that is the end of row 4. And for the purposes of this tutorial, this would be, you know, imagine that this is wider and taller. And so this is the body of your vest. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to do the flaps. All righty. All right, so when you have reached an even number of rows that would reach from the back of your neck, where it's going to rest, and then as far down as you want it to be, I like it to go down past my waistline, not too far past, but past my waistline. And so that would be the height. Now you have these open loops at the top here. So now it's a matter of finding the center space. So we've got boom, 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 boom. All right, so this would be my center space. So for the sake of ease, I'm going to take a little bit of scrap yarn and I'm going to create a temporary marker so that I don't stitch into it. Yes, convenient like that. All right, so that way I know just how far I have to go across. So from here, we are going to start in on our first flap. So because we are at an open space, well, we're going to continue on in the same fashion by chaining up 3. 1, 2, 3. Turn the work. And into that space, 2 more double crochets to finish the cluster. Chain 1. Do another cluster into the next chain 1 space. Chain 1 and another cluster, and we don't go into this space. No. All right, so do a cluster into here. And then we're going to work our way upwards with a chaining of 4. Turn the work. Then 3 doubles into that next chain 1 space. And one of the really neat things that I found was when you're doing the flaps, it goes so much faster. Granted, you have to make 2 of them, but it's more gratifying actually, because you're like, oh my gosh, it's flying right by, you know, because you're doing half the width. So I did my 3 doubles, chain 1, and then 3 more doubles. Chain 1, and then a double crochet into the 3rd chain from the bottom, right in there, with a double crochet. Oop, dang it. There we go. All right, chaining up 3, turn the work, and do the exact same thing. You know, it's a joy. It is an absolute joy because it is so simple, and that's why I love this so much. I know, I gush. I know, I gush. Whenever I get really excited about something, that's what I do. I gush. All right, and then chain 1, and then 3 doubles into this space here. Now, what I did for my piece was I ended on, it was an odd number of rows. That is my personal preference, because then when my piece was finished and I folded down the flaps and, I was sewing, it was a solid with a solid, okay? And then you had, these spaces in between. Personally, I thought it made it easier as far as lining it up. You can do an even number, you can do an odd number, but as far as the number when you're finished with your body, I would say personally end on an even number because it makes it so much easier. And I'm going to show you why, because we are now going to do the second flap. Okay. All right. Alrighty. So now what I did was I snipped off my yarn. And now if you look closely, you can see that my first row for my first flap, you see how the V's are facing me? This is the right side, okay, as far as this first row is concerned. If you turn it over, they're facing away from me. They're snubbing me. So what you want to do, if you want to go for absolute symmetry, and a more seamless look, which I don't think I covered this when I did the kimono shawl. What you want to do is start not in the corner here with the wrong side facing you. No. Start here. Okay. So we're going to start right in here so that the stitches will follow suit and also be facing us for this first row. So pull up your yarn and chain up 3. 1, 2, 3. And of course, you could always tug on your tail a little bit. No worries. You can sew in that end later. And do 2 more double crochets into this same space. So yeah, you can neaten this up. No worries. Okay. And then from here, chain 1, 3 doubles into the next space. Chain 1 and 3 doubles into the last space. So if you look, see how the V's are facing towards me as opposed to away? And then look over here. They're facing the same way. So it'll look nice and even and neat. Yay! All right, so then from here, chain up 4. Turn the work. Pull your tail a little bit. And then into the next chain 1 space, 3 doubles. Chain 1, 3 more doubles. Chain 1, and then double crochet into the top 3rd chain of your first double crochet. There we go. We got this. We got this. All right, you can pull that down and then sew it in later. I wouldn't do it right away. All right, so then chain up 3. Turn your work. I don't know if you can hear my washing machine in the background. I apologize for the noise. Yes, even I do laundry. All right, so then into this space, 2 more doubles. Chain 1. 3 doubles into the next chain 1 space. There we go. Chain 1, and then 3 doubles into the last space. And also, I would strongly suggest definitely, count the number of rows. You don't have to do it initially, but definitely count the number of rows of, one flap versus the other flap to make sure that they are the same number of rows. Yes, I'm going to stress that point because otherwise it will be, well, it won't be even. All right. And the neat thing that we have here is that we have a neckline, so that when we fold them down, your neck is going to rest right in here, nice and snug, as opposed to, just a slit down the middle. And that's why I suggested doing an odd number of increments or multiples of 3, because it gives you a nice space in between. All right. So then, basically reverting back to the footage that I showed before, as far as, taking these flaps and then twisting them and then doing your sewing, so you can revert back to that footage, for further instrucciones. And then, you can do your, your edging, however it is that you wish. And yeah, there you go. All right, so that's the end of the tutorial, which, yeah, I know I keep saying this, but it really is more of a formula than a specific pattern. But regardless of that, I really do hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something and that it might just inspire you to try making one yourself. Yeah. So listen, everybody, thank you so very much for watching. And, if you like this, please give me a little thumbs up button down below to show your support, because I really do appreciate your appreciation, and it really does help me out. Also, if you haven't hit subscribe, please do so, because I do try to post regularly, whether it's crocheting or knitting or audiobook narration, or my other YouTube channel, Fiber Spider Games, where I do video game playthrough and commentary. It's a lot of fun, and I would love to see you there as well. So listen, until next time, I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, and above all, stay stitching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.